We have got some good games to stack on the Week 5 NFL DFS main slate. They might not be the ones that stand out most from a total perspective. I think there are actually some ways you can go elsewhere and still get games that have shootout potential where we like players on both sides. Our job for today is let you know what those games are, how we want to stack them, and our top plays across the entirety of the Week 5 NFL DFS main slate. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is Jim Sannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Thursday by Brandon Gdula. You can find him at X at Gdula13. Find his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, Week 5 is coming in hot. How you doing today?
Good. Battled back in our head-to-head contest to even things out, which is nice. Got off to a slow start, which is usually the inverse of how these things go. Usually I get off to a good start, and then it's all on Jim to put the foot down on the gas pedal, and then I'm just playing defense. So it was nice to lose the first few to be able to kind of open things up and bring it back. So it doesn't feel like I just collapsed. It feels like maybe you collapsed a little bit with this early lead.
I didn't collapse. My lineup last week was awesome. I had a great score, but you outscored me, and I was so annoyed. Like, I actually had a good lineup, and it didn't matter.
It happens.
It shouldn't happen. I disagree. I think you should play worse. That's my one request about all this. So please play worse, make me happier, and we can proceed forward. Skate better. Skate better. It's been at least a year since the Brink reference, so we were due. All right, so our jobs for today. First, we're going to start things off by talking down the key injuries on the main slate. Then we'll dive into games we want to stack, talking through three games with high totals. There are some other games we'll talk about in the trend section too that could be somewhat enticing. We'll break down our top plays by position on FanDuel as well. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, we're going to put timestamps in the episode description up there, also in the podcast description on Spotify, Apple, etc. So if you want to skip around, jump to game stacks, jump to position by position picks, check out the timestamps there. Those of you watching YouTube, I don't know what time those will be if you're watching live. So apologies there, but we do appreciate all of you for tuning in live over on YouTube. Speaking of that, you got the new FanDuel football betting YouTube page, which is where all of our Heat Check podcasts and covering the spreads live throughout this fall. So if you want NFL or college football betting or NFL DFS recommendations, go to the FanDuel football betting YouTube page, which is where we are streaming live right now. Hit subscribe and leave us a thumbs up. We appreciate all of you who have done so already. Live later on today, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, with Megan Payton of FanDuel TV, breaking down her best bets across NFL Week number 5. For the podcast version of this, FanDuel Research Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, NFL fans, you can make every moment more this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only, $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help Oregon, Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at our slate overview for week number 5 in NFL DFS. Brandon, when you look at this slate, what stands out to you as being the key things as far as prioritization, as far as things to keep in mind while you're building your lineups?
That is a great question. We don't do our recap show. We don't do our salaries, our initial salary scroll and figure out like, oh, I like this player. Oh, and I like the salary. So I started doing that on my own. And I got to be honest, I didn't find a ton of names that I loved who also had good salaries.
Sure.
And I always want to avoid the Najee Harris of it all, where it's like, I don't love this, but I guess I should at the salary, which is kind of what we got last week. We might get that again this week, potentially with Najee in particular. But I don't like to build lineups with players whose salaries are good. I want to build lineups with players who I'm excited to use and find ways to get them into my lineup. Again, didn't find a lot of that. So throughout the show, I want to figure out who we're talking about where I'm like, yeah, actually, I like that player more than I thought. I need those. But ultimately, I still, even if I find a couple of those, I'm so far off from like where I typically am. And I'm assuming this is where you're going to go, is like, we got to figure out which game stacks we like.
Yeah. And I think that's the key thing for me is you're talking about not finding a lot of guys you love at salary. I do find a good number, but they're all on like very concentrated teams. Like, are you a Green Bay Packer? I probably like you at salary. Are you a 49er? Sick. Count me in. Like it's finding players beyond that. And it's like, I can only use so many guys from the same team in one lineup. So I'm settling on the same issue as you, but it's because everyone I like plays for like two teams, basically.
But answer me this though. I feel the same way, especially with those two teams. Not saying they're the only two teams I feel that way about, but if you have 4 players from a team where you like them, do you really have a love there, or is it like I want to get exposure? Which to me, those are very similar things, but also different.
Right. So you're asking basically like, would I consider a Packer in a cash game?
It's okay. It's like, okay, we like Jaden Reed. We can like Dontavian Wicks. I'm still good with Romeo Doubs because he always leads in routes, and I think he's just.
I'm higher on him than I used to be.
But like, which one of them are you like, no, this is the guy, and I'll play the other two?
Right. Do you know why we have that fear though? Is because they don't have good median expectations. And remember, Brandon, you got to ignore the floor. It's about upside, and these guys got juice. And I'm okay with taking on risk if it means I got juice to compensate for it. Give me that juice.
That's not what I'm getting at, but okay.
Give me that juice. Hey, they've got ceilings. That's all I care about. Do those guys have
ceilings?
But
which one of these guys are you like?
Josh
typically when we leave a show, we know, okay, our head-to-head's going to be
it's new wild this week. I have no idea what you're going to do.
Yeah, I don't either. And
I can probably name you one player who will definitively be in my head-to-head against you this week. I'm not telling you who it is, but like I can. It's a quarterback. Like I know my quarterback against you, basically.
Quarterback, okay.
Yeah. Like the rest of it, I've got no idea, frankly.
I mean, you can tell. You're gonna have to tell everyone.
It's
else.
Purdy. It's Purdy. Yeah.
I was actually gonna ask when we got to that. I was like, is this this could be either a 2 QB game, a 1 QB game, and that
it's a 1 QB game, and that 1 QB is not Kyler Murray.
I was gonna say, or it could be a 0 QB game. So I can see this one going, and that's how I feel about the slate. But like, if you like that game a lot, you're like, look, I want to get to Marv. I love the 49ers. There's your game stack. Kind of makes itself, but it's one of those weeks. So I think there's a lot to dig into.
Marv's salary is not bad, which does help too for game stacks. That one, frankly, the salaries of the Niners skill guys aren't terrible either.
And we'll Fred Warner didn't practice, so
if we get no black hole, that would help Trey McBride if he plays. But we'll see. I hope Warner plays because I may or may not have laid 7.5 with the Niners, and he would hurt that a little bit. I would still have a lot of value, to be fair. It is the 4th highest total I've ever had in my model dating back to week 15 in 2022. I like that game a lot. We'll talk about that one in a bit. But first, let's go through some injuries impacting the week number 5 NFL DFS main slate. A couple of guys could return this week. They've been activated from IR, which means they're back at practice, but a 21-day window to be activated to the active roster. Not really sure when they'll play. Those guys, Nick Chubb, Kendrick Bourne, the big ones. I don't know if Kendrick Bourne counts. It's Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, I don't think he'll play this week.
Nemesis.
I know. I've got him in Dynasty now, though, so we're back on speaking terms. That's the criteria.
That's the most Jim thing ever, is hating on someone and then coming around quietly, not admitting fault, but just.
I was never wrong. You were just too early. Like,
no, I wasn't even there.
Changed.
I wasn't even there. It was like,
it was people on YouTube yelling at me for
not
using
Twitter and YouTube. You were getting all worked up.
Yeah. He has one good game. People go nuts. but I hope he has good games this year. Nick Chubb, don't think we'll play this week, but keep tabs on that one and check back on that later on. Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson both up in the air for the Colts this week. Taylor seems likely to sit with a high ankle sprain. Trey Sermon would seemingly be next man up. Richardson did get in a limited session on Wednesday, and he's day-to-day. I think he's going to play, but I'm not 100% positive on that. Would you go at Trey Sermon if Jonathan Taylor is out? And does Richardson's availability impact your view of Sermon and the pass catchers on this Colts team against the Jaguars?
Maybe and yes. So like maybe to Sermon where it's if I don't love anyone, I'm more open and receptive to sort of playing someone I'm not super high on due to salary. And for Sermon, anyone who's watching, 5,900 for Sermon this week. It's too low to just gloss over and say no thanks. Has not been efficient, but kind of runs some routes, so like that's somewhat appealing. He wouldn't make the traditional love list for us. But I'm receptive, especially, I don't feel great about quarterback. I know there's one guy you love. There's some big names, but they're all at high salaries. So if I want to get to them, like Sermon's a little more appealing. But
can I use this as a gauge on him for you quick? We were both like meh on Cam Akers 2 weeks ago. His salary is 4,000, so it's a bit different. But like, I'm higher on Sermon than I was on Akers entering that game. Where are you compared to where you were on Akers entering week number 3?
I can't, because 4,000 was like, if he gets me 9 at 4,000, it's not what I'm looking for. I want 15 at least out of everyone. Like I want that potential. 4,000 so much different than 5,900. It's really hard. If I try my best, I'd say it's about even.
Yeah.
Which,
okay.
I played Akers like I kind of came around on it because the salary was just so low and the reports were promising.
Yeah.
How convinced are we that, like, give me an over-under snap rate that you 65. Would kind of.
Because he ran more routes than Goodson in that. You remember when Taylor didn't play the fourth quarter against the Packers? Sermon ran more routes than Goodson did. And he was the guy who got the early down work when JT got hurt late against the Steelers. So I think he'll get early down work, and I think he'll get some passing game work. So that's why I put the number at 65 or so.
It's fine. I would love to see what his rushing receiving prop is, but I know we're spending a lot of time on Trey Sermon, but I think it kind of would open up the slate a lot. So again, I'm not excited there because I think there's enough potential where he's like a 55% snap rate guy, hasn't been very efficient from the limited sample he's had. So it's fine, but I don't love it. I'm a little more interested in the pass catchers.
Sure.
If we get Joe Flacco,
yeah,
would be fun. Michael Pittman, I know we kind of go up and down on Michael Pittman, mostly down, but he's got a 30% target share for the year if he plays with a quarterback when they're going to play a little more pass heavy. That's appealing. And then you have Alec Pierce and Josh Downs with about 15% target shares. Their ADOTs are completely in different like stratospheres, but where would you be with Pittman if we were to get Flacco?
I'm higher than I typically would be. He's $6,100. I don't like Pittman. He doesn't get a lot of downfield work.
Yeah,
but he got 2 deep targets last week, so like maybe Flacco would be more willing to go downfield to him. Josh Downs, no deep targets yet, but 5 and 9 targets in the 2 games he has played. So his target share in those 2 games for him is 30%, actually identical to Pittman. That's not bad. Salaries are low. Jags defense stinks. I would consider both Pittman and Downs, probably leaning toward Pittman, I guess. I don't think either would be like a cash game play with Flacco, and I won't use either if Richardson plays because I think they'll just be more run heavy. But I'd consider both if Flacco's in there.
Any Alec Pierce?
No. Too thin for me.
Yeah.
And like Flacco's not like weirdly Flacco is less of a DGaffer, and Flacco is like the biggest DGaff guy of all time. Like he's somehow less of a DGaffer than the guy you're replacing. and Pierce needs someone who just doesn't care. So I think I wouldn't be as high on him there. How much would Flacco starting impact you as Sermon? Up or down?
Probably up.
Yeah. Okay. Same game. Evan Ingram able to get in a limited session on Wednesday, potentially putting him on track to return with his hamstring injury. Would you consider Ingram against the Colts if he gets in a full practice by Friday?
Maybe. Tight ends got some options. It's one of the better positions, I think.
You're right, but how?
I don't know if, like, Brenton Strange has been fine. Good draft capital. I know they, clearly think high of Evan Ingram, but he's limited. They've got plenty of other options. I would be astonished if Evan Ingram really made me regret not using him. So I'd probably, I guess, if I'm stacking, he'd be in that consideration set, but I don't think I'm going out of my way to play Evan Ingram as a one-off.
Yeah. I think he would downgrade Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas a bit. Christian Kirk specifically, because like they'd probably run more 2 tight end sets, and Kirk doesn't play in those typically. So it hurt Christian Kirk. It might maybe hurt Brian Thomas a bit, but I'm not as itchy to think that one. So I think it more so downgrades other guys. I would consider Ingram, and I'd be fine with him. Like if it's a Pittman Ingram mini stack or a Sermon Ingram mini stack, I'm okay with that, but not a priority play. Do like the matchup for him, and I'll use him probably, but not tripping over myself to get there necessarily. Joe Mixon, in a surprise to me at least, didn't practice Wednesday with his ankle injury. He actually practiced last Friday, so I think he's going to play. Didn't practice Wednesday, though. Damian Pierce did not practice. Tank Dell limited. They've already said he'll return. Other side of that game, Khalil Shakir didn't practice Wednesday with an ankle injury. I think he'll play, but assume he'll be okay, but worth noting on him. We'll talk about that Bills versus Texans game in the bookmaker section. Trey McBride able to get in limited practice Wednesday. Sounds like he'll be good to go this week. We'll talk about the Cardinals and Niners in the bookmaker section. David Njoku returned to practice with his high ankle sprain on Wednesday. Browns facing a leaky Commanders defense on Sunday. If Njoku returns, would it lower your views on Amari Cooper against a pretty tough defense? By tough, I mean not great. I didn't mean tough as like difficult.
I guess a little. I still think Amari's going to earn a lot of targets just because it seems evident. But Njoku did get 5 targets on 19 rounds, which is a 26% target per route rate, which roughly 30% is like an elite receiver mark. I think tight end average is around 18%. So you expect him to be involved, but the salary is still nice. So I wouldn't be out on Cooper, but I guess it would lower me a smidge.
Would you consider Njoku at 55 if he plays, if he gets in a full practice by Friday?
I mean, maybe, but again, I think we got some nice tight end options.
Yeah.
His quarterbacks are maybe playing a little bit better than Njoku's right now. So
only reason I consider Amari is because the salary is low and the workload is so good. I can't guarantee I'll get that with Njoku. So I don't want exposure to the Browns unless I'm like kind of forced into it by salary and role and things like that. Austin Eckler got in a limited practice on Wednesday, meaning he is on track to return against the Browns. Brian Robinson didn't practice the knee injury. He seemed fine on Sunday and also is limited last week. So I think he's actually fine. But it is worth noting there. Does Eckler's likely return push you off Robinson at $7,700?
So I didn't really view Robinson's role last week to be totally different without Eckler. Jeremy McNichols played. He played well. I know he's, unfortunately for us, scored touchdowns. So I don't really view this much as a change for Robinson. I guess technically it's more likely he loses more work to Eckler, but again, it's like, for me, it's mostly would you play Brian Robinson in this spot at 77? Maybe not, probably not. I think the bigger question within this offense is like, where are you with Jaden Daniels? I know your QB1 is not a high salary quarterback, but we do have a good number, by which I mean 3, maybe 4 if you include CJ Stroud, who could kind of torch us. Are we worried about Daniels, or do we think the matchup and the game environment's enough where it doesn't matter?
Yeah, I'll be back later. I think that I'm okay pumping the brakes for now. I think that'll be consensus. Like, I think he'll be pretty low roster this week, but I don't see enough there to go out of my way to use him against the Browns. I just don't tend to use quarterbacks against the Browns in general. So maybe that's a mistake because the Commanders, even after adjusting for schedule, have been awesome this year offensively. Even if you after you account for schedule, they're first in schedule adjusted passing and rushing efficiency based on never fires metrics. So like maybe they're just really good. Cleveland's defense 15th so far, so they haven't been amazing. Myles Garrett's banged up. He's still playing, but he's banged up. So like maybe it's a mistake. Maybe that is a game with sneaky shootout potential, but I don't know. I could see myself talking myself into like a game stack of this game to be different without being dumb, but I would A, need to be guaranteed it'll be low rostered, and B, it would be very, very limited exposure just to stack that game up in case it's one that goes nuts.
And what is the stack?
It would be Jaden Daniels, Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I agree with that thought. Are you kind of in the same place though?
Yeah, I understand it. Okay. The salary is really good for Amari. I don't want to lose sight of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
Okay. Both Cordero Patterson and Jalen Warren missed practice Wednesday for the Steelers. Najee Harris, well, I don't want to say Najee Harris is not efficient because their offensive line is banged up, potentially other reasons too. But Najee's at home. Good matchup with a poor Cowboys rush defense, missing a couple defensive linemen in DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. Would you consider Harris at $6,500 if both Warren and Patterson cannot go?
Didn't Pittsburgh just lose another guard?
Yes. They've lost everyone.
At a certain point, the workload can only lead so far if Najee can't really create a lot on his own.
Do you remember that one year where Le'Veon was the Jets and was constantly getting like amazing workloads and doing diddly poo with it?
So Harris has a 31% rushing success rate, but the running back average for the Steelers is only 34%. So like he is below average, but it's just not good. Yeah. And he's averaging 0.76 yards under expectation per carry.
0.76 is like almost like a 3/4 of a yard below expectation.
Technically more, but yeah. Like where was he last week? Oh. You have 19 yards on 13 carries last week.
Yeah, not great.
Next Gen Stats had him for like 49 expected rushing yards. And I'm not saying it's like a perfect
right. And the offensive line plays a role in that too. Stuff like that. You know.
Look, as someone who never plays Najee, I did last week.
Yeah.
The props kind of made it make sense too. I was like, I don't want to be stubborn here. And so I watched him a little bit closer, and I think I messaged you about this. I'm like, I'm not.
We're both tilting the entire game,
but it's like he's getting met at the line, constantly. And if he's not going to be able to do a ton with, I'm not saying it's even his fault,
right? Doesn't matter whose fault it is,
and he can get 25 carries if he's going to get a 70 yards. What does it really do for it? And he's running some routes, he can get some targets, but like. Does he have to score twice to burn us? At least
to
once,
burn us, yes.
To burn us, yeah. So. What's his cap for scrimmage yards?
Like an amazing game for him is like 104, I think, right? I don't know why I pick one.
Probably, I don't know.
Like he's had, we always talk just opportunities, which is carries plus 2x targets. This year he's averaging 24.5, which is like a really good number for a value back. Like that's the best for anybody in their most relevant sample below $8,000. Do you exclude Brian Robinson the one game without Eckler? But he's at 78 scrimmage yards per game, despite that good workload. It's like, and despite like he had a fluky long reception last week too to kind of boost that number up there even. So
what if I told you he's got basically Breece Hall numbers then, because he kind of does. 26 adjusted opportunities for 77 yards, and Harris is at 24.5 for 78. So
don't talk to me about Breece Hall. Don't talk to me about Breece Hall. Come on. You know better than that. You jerk. Sermon or Najee, if we assume there's no Patterson or Jalen Warren. I'd probably say a mixture of both. Like I'd have some of both. I would try to fade both in like a high dollar single entry, like just try to float in the mid range and avoid both. But like for multi entry, fine, I'll have some of each.
If I'm being honest, probably Najee, because then I can bring it back with Jake Ferguson more.
Okay. Speaking of which, Brandon Cooks not going to play this week for the Cowboys due to a knee infection. He wasn't getting a ton of work to begin with. Super tough matchup with the Steelers, but would that put you any higher on CeeDee Lamb or Jake Ferguson with no Cooks this week?
Jake Ferguson for sure. His workload's been great since he returned. I have my notes somewhere, but I have too many tabs. So this is the first time in 10 years it's burned me having too many tabs open. But
vindication.
So he's got in 2 weeks since he's returned, 24% target share, 72 yards per game, and I referenced the target per route rate for Njoku being 26% in week 1. He's at 29%, which again is borderline like elite receiver territory. At 62, we'd rather be in the 5s whenever we can for tight end, but tight end's not great. And the reason that or at least I've been playing a lot of tight ends in the 5,000 range is because nobody's had a ceiling at tight end. Like nobody's flashed it. I think Jake Ferguson has it. Like he's good. He gets work. He's got yardage upside to me. Hasn't scored yet. I know he's been limited. So I think there's a lot to like for Ferguson.
Yeah, I just worry about touchdown chances because I kind of want to maximize like my implied team total at tight end is kind of the way I typically play things, and that's not gonna mesh super well here. So I probably won't be quite as high on him personally, but I understand your thought process there. I think it makes sense. It deviates a bit from like the way I want to play things at a position that's pretty touchdown dependent. I get your thought process though.
I would love to know which tight ends on teams with higher implied totals
Tucker Kraft
actively like. Okay,
I was going to say
Kittle, Kraft,
Dalton Kincaid. I don't mind.
And Kincaid. I'll talk more about him too. He's got a good role right now. But
yeah, I think those.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, but there's not an abundance of like.
No, definitely not. No, you're right.
Hey, he's like TE8. I think he's.
I guess the way I do it though is like I kind of just like whatever game I'm stacking. Like, can I toss the tight end in there? Sure, cool. Let's do that, and then don't think about it basically. And that's I'm not going to stack this game, so that's part of why.
Yeah, but
Neighbors.
Are you gonna? So you said Kraft? Are you gonna play Jordan Love?
Yeah, but well, I don't know. Maybe not. His salary's pretty high. It's higher than I thought it'd be. So I don't know if I play Jordan Love, but I do like Tucker Kraft. Salary's very low. We're on a ton of routes. Luke Musgrave didn't practice Wednesday, so yeah,
I'm there with Kraft. I get it, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Like his salary is a lot lower than Ferguson's, which is why I don't view him as being like in the same discussion as him. Go ahead. No,
we're talking Jake Ferguson without Cooks. He's going to be the second option. Tucker Kraft's going to be the 5th option in the offense.
But with like much higher scoring expectation, significantly better matchup, that's double counting. But still.
Yeah.
And $900 lower in salary. Actually, Tucker Kraft was second in targets last year. If you look at the Packers, what I would deem, I don't know what sample you pulled for our trends discussion later on, but weeks 14 to 16, which is where after Dontavian Wicks have been like integrated in the offense, where Dodds is healthy, no Christian Watson. Kraft actually was second at 16.3% target share at that time. So maybe he's number 2 option. Who can say?
That's good you pulled that because I looked specifically at this year with Jordan Love because I think it's indicative, and I think
that's smart.
I think all these young receivers, I think there's a lot that probably changed from last year to this year, but maybe that's just
Fair point. Malik Neighbors was not able to practice Wednesday as he works through concussion protocol. Kind of thought he would, so I think that lowers the odds he plays a decent amount. If Neighbors cannot go, would you chase anybody on this Giants team against a banged up Seahawks defense?
This is a little bit of like galaxy brain territory, but I think there's some appeal here. No, I'm just like look, I've been publishing a buy low breakout model on FanDuel Research, and whenever you take out the immense target share from Malik Neighbors, obviously someone's going to have some potential. Jalen Hyatt he's got 3 targets. They're all downfield bombs. I'm not really there, but in digging in more, obviously we know Wan'Dale Robinson's got a great target share, not a lot of downfield work. Salary's only 6,100. That's fine. But a throwback for us, Darius Slayton has already been running routes.
Mm-hmm.
He's a pretty good football player. He can get downfield work. It would make a lot of sense if Neighbors is out, where he gets, a good amount of high leverage targets. I'm not saying he takes over the Malik Neighbors role, but I think there's something there on frankly for me, a slate where there's not a lot of value jumping out. So we very much value every one of our lineup positions.
Yeah.
I would say we very much value our running back slots.
Yeah.
Because you can't really make up a lot of points if you have a 40% snap rate and you guess wrong on like a Trey Sermon. So are you more likely to take a chance on someone like a value receiver? I'm not saying specifically Slayton, or a Trey Sermon. I think that actually is probably like the best question. Like, are you flexing Dontavian Wicks or Trey Sermon this week?
Well, I don't know.
And do you like the Giants at all? I guess we'll start there, but no?
I love Darius Slayton as a talent, so I agree with you on that aspect. But Daniel Jones' right arm looks cooked. This is like a film bro take, so sorry. But like watching that game Thursday night, he could not push the ball downfield, and that's where Darius Slayton wins. Like if you told me, hey, Daniel Jones is his partner's having a baby and he's going to miss Sunday's game, so he can't play, and you say Drew Lock's going to play, I'd say fire up Darius Slayton, baby, because Drew Lock doesn't care. Revenge game. Will chuck it deep. I think that Daniel Jones' right arm is cooked and he can't push the ball downfield. So it's a stylistic thing. I like the talent. I like the fact that he's out there a lot, but I'm just really worried that Daniel Jones can't get in the ball where Darius Slayton wins. That's my concern.
How does he magically get the ball to Malik Neighbors downfield then?
He doesn't get the ball to Malik Neighbors downfield. He's completed 6 of 20 passes, 16 plus yards downfield. He's awful.
16, but where is he? I mean, Neighbors getting
6 of 20. Like Darius Slayton does not get targets shorter than 16 yards downfield. That's why I want to focus on that sample. Like Darius Slayton gets bombs and he catches them because he's good at football, but like he does not get short targets. So
then Wan'Dale?
No.
All right.
The criteria is 85 yards or 2 touchdowns. I'm not sure you can get me either of those. So no, I can't get there with Wan'Dale. I was going to ask you about the Dolphins, but I don't hate myself enough to do that. So instead, let's talk about our first game in the bookmaker section. That is the Ravens at the Bengals. Totals come down a couple of points in this one. It is now 48.5. The Ravens favored by 2.5 in this game. The Ravens coming off a couple of massive showings against the Cowboys and against the Bills. They've gone run-centric the past 2 weeks, though. Worked out pretty well. Bengals offense has shown life the past couple weeks. What's your view of this game for stacking?
It's kind of like a get in, get out situation where there's only so many paths. Look, Derrick Henry's the role itself is kind of just okay. He's just so good. Like he's got a thorn in his side with Justice Hill, who he could get. Like Derrick Henry could be the RB1 or get scripted out. I'm not saying he's going to get completely scripted out, even if they're trailing. But like, it's not how you want to feel about someone whose salary is over 9,000. So that is a bit of a concern for me. But I fear of missing out on Derrick Henry. And really other than that, it's Zay Flowers, he's the wide receiver 1 by far. He's the only pass catcher I would consider here. And even that feels like a little bit of a, I can do better situation.
Sure.
And then for the Bengals, like Jamar Chase has not had a great target share in a single game. He's so good he can score from anywhere, but it's a little bit concerning for the salary being 9,300. Like, not saying that we're probably going to run into many flex conundrums where we have 9,300 left and it's like Jamar Chase or Derrick Henry, but I'd go Derrick Henry there at this point without too much question. T. Higgins had a good role in his second week back. So T. Higgins at 68, I think, is appealing. I think you just kind of like, if you want Higgins, Henry, it's kind of it here.
Basically. What about Lamar at $8,800? Obviously, he's running a lot, which is helpful, despite the fact they're in a positive script. And I think the pitch here would be Bengals take a lead early. Ravens are forced to play 4 quarters for the first time in a couple weeks. That could boost Lamar. How do you view him at $8,800?
So when I did my own salary scroll, Lamar was kind of the one name that popped out.
Sure.
But I'm also fighting against the fact that he's coming out and saying like he doesn't care about his own stats. He just wants to win, which is awesome to hear.
Sure.
For the Ravens and Ravens fans.
Sure.
Not for me. There's a lot. I mean, he's still got a 31% red zone rushing share. I think that's been it was 60%, week 1 and these are all small samples if you go game by game, but I'm not certain he's going, and I know he ran for a touchdown each of the past 2 games, but not sure that that's as sticky as it used to be with Derrick Henry there. The passing yardage isn't great. So like he might be my QB1 where I might not play him. I'm leaning more toward like, if those are my only 2 options, is playing someone else probably.
Sure.
It's kind of, I don't know. So we got this high total, fun players. If you're building like your best lineup possible, anyone from this game make it?
Probably not. I could see T maybe making it.
I think T's the closest.
Yeah, the salary's nice there, which helps. The workload is pretty good. No Ravens pass catchers would be in a single lineup. I don't think Lamar would be there personally right now, or Burrow. Henry, it kind of goes back to the old way we viewed Derrick Henry, where in the past it was, okay, what are the odds Derrick Henry burns me for not using him, and then you use that to dictate your roster rate on him. Are we thinking at $9,200 that does lower the odds he burns you? Are we thinking 25% odds he burns you for not using him, or is that too high?
Against this rush defense, that's probably about right. Because
So
we're
then
talking like if he gets you 20, it's
fine.
A good game, but
It's not burning you though. Yeah.
Even 25, like So
37.
He's got to do what
burns
he's done in the past. He's got to do the stuff he's done the past 2 games.
So let's say you have 4 single entry lineups. We always say you can use different lineups across single entries, which is what you should do basically. Would you use Henry in one of those? Basically, Henry with T in one?
Yeah. I think I would want to walk away from that type of exposure with at least one, because he's the guy right now who can torch us. Yeah. And honestly, he looks good.
Yeah, he does. It's nice. He's fun to watch. Again, good ground games are aesthetically pleasing, and I'm glad that this is happening for them. Any Burrow for you at $7,800?
Probably not. I wouldn't talk anyone out of it because, again, I don't feel great about many quarterbacks. So, he's my hair brother right now with where my hair is at. His face kind of explains how I'm feeling about his performance, though. Where it's like, it's fine.
Yeah, I probably won't get to Burrow just because there are enough quarterbacks I like elsewhere. So I'm okay with ignoring your hair brother for right now. But I'm at least open to it, I would say. Specifically with Higgins. I agree with your thoughts on Chase. Like, he could go nuts. He's kind of like Jefferson, where, like, he could do really well, but like he kind of has to go. Like, his workload's not Jefferson's. I want to be clear on that.
Yeah, that's
but like, because the game environment is much better than what Jefferson's typically is, they wind up in the same area despite being very different routes to that area.
Yeah,
I'm just like, whatever. I'd rather, like you said, spend it for Henry personally.
And like, if Jamar Chase gets a 35% target share this week, does it surprise me? No. Is it are they showing us that they want to do that or are doing that? No, like
Yeah.
he's at like a 20% target share. His max is a 20.7% target share in a game this year. That's not.
Yeah.
If he wasn't scoring touchdowns, what would his salary be? Like,
well, I think that will change because like he's Jamar Chase, so I don't think that's sticky.
So I don't like. We shouldn't either. But how many games does it take us for him not to be peppered one time before
more
it's
than
like,
four?
okay,
More than four.
So then in this situation, we got 4 games of an outlierly low target share. Why are you not clamoring to get Jamar Chase?
Because he's actually at production, and I'm not buying low. Like if he had not produced in that stuff, and it'd be like, oh wow, his salary's gone down, people are down on him, roster rate's low, then like yeah, I'd be like, heck yeah, let's buy low. But like that's not the case.
So what would you? We're spending way more time on this game than we thought we would, but what would you expect his target share to be this week?
25 to 30.
Like 25% at 93 is not.
No, exactly. Really that's why I'm not super high in him. I don't.
So you think it's going to go up?
Yeah.
By 5 percentage points. Not rest of the season, he's going to have a 31% target share.
No, I think we're about 5 percentage points this week from where it has been thus far.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We both think Jamar Chase is a viable play.
Viable, but oversalaried.
Yeah.
Viable because of the game environment. Any Ravens pass catchers in the instance that they fall behind and have to throw? Or
it would be Zay, if anyone, not the tight ends.
Yeah. Even then.
Like Zay,
I think that's
Zay
why this
wide receiver
game is
one. Zay's their wide receiver one, clearly. They don't want to throw the ball.
Yeah. It's a tough game to stack. One thing you said before we came on air is not every high total game needs to be stacked. I think that's kind of where this one falls in. So bit of a bummer, but I think that's the right way to view this one. Let's talk now about a game that I do want to stack. That is the Cardinals at the 49ers. Total in this game, 49.5, and the Niners favored by 7.5 in this one. This is actually, again, like I said, the 4th highest total I have in my model, which dates back to week 15 of 2022. I have the Niners favored by double digits. So I like their side a lot. How do you view this game from a DFS perspective?
Honestly, the hard part is I'm not loving what I've seen from Kyler necessarily, which I feel like happens every single year, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It's hard to dislike what Marvin Harrison Jr. is doing. I know, Trey McBride's return would help things here, but it's a fair question. Division rival, sizable underdogs here. If I'm building a lineup, do I actively want exposure to the Cardinals in this game? Probably not, unless it's just Marv. Do I actively want some exposure to the 49ers? Yeah. It's a lot easier that way. So in terms of stackability, I came fully prepared with this game in mind to say, how many QBs is this game? Because typically it'd be 1 and it's Kyler. Now it might be 1 and it's Purdy.
Yeah.
So I think that tells me a lot about where I am with the Cardinals in this spot.
Yeah, I don't mind their skill guys because Harrison's salary went down almost $1,000. He's $7,400, and I know Fred Warner's banged up. We always joke about like the black hole in the middle of the defense. That doesn't impact Marvin Harrison Jr. as much as it would Trey McBride or James Conner. So $7,400, like let's say a Brock Purdy. I'll put Debo in there. Why not? And then Marvin Harrison Jr. game stack. That's not bad at all. You can definitely get to that kind of game stack. And with Debo's workload, I'm pretty inclined to do so. So I do think that, yes, I agree with you on Kyler. Probably not going to use him in DFS. That does not lower me on Harrison, and it would not lower me on McBride if he's able to go and Warner does not play.
Yeah. I think the 49ers just have viable options. I kind of want to highlight Brandon Ayuk, though.
Sure.
The eternal regression candidate. He's been he's got a lot of empty end zone targets. He's been tackled inside the 5 twice. He's combined for 7 of those near touchdowns, which is tied for first in the league according to my data. We're not going to love the yardage output. This feels like this feels like one of those spots where I'm like, okay, I think he's got yardage upside and touchdown upside. And if you didn't like Brandon Ayuk, you would just run your mouse over his receiving yardage total and say he can't earn yards.
No, he had 3 deep targets last week. He can.
So but it's a 4-game sample.
Yeah.
So I think Ayuk is the number one play here due to the salary and due to his workload being what it is. Basically, with Kittle and Debo back, it was back to usual. Juwan Jennings ran his 60% route rate. He's still good at football, but it's kind of Ayuk, Debo, Kittle getting the work. I guess technically, if I had a favorite play, it should be Jordan Mason, but it's hard to account for that in terms of his elevated salary.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of value. If I went with Mason, I would definitely need to be receptive to like a Dontavian Wicks or Kraft to sort of balance things out on the low end. And even that's not going to be enough. So where are you with Mason? And how would you rank the pass catchers this week?
Let me start with Mason. $8,700 is the salary. I think, frankly, the 100-yard bonus on FanDuel is really boosting him this year because he's not getting a lot of passing game work, though he did get 37 yards on Sunday, which is his most so far this year. But he's going to get every running back carry. I mentioned before, I've got the Niners favored by double digits in this game. That could mean that a very positive script. So I might wind up in a situation where I have Purdy as like my cash game quarterback and don't use Mason as a result. But let's say hypothetically I get off Purdy, I might just shovel Mason in there instead. He's got competition in that 8,000 range because Kyren Williams also looks pretty good in the 8,000 range. James Cook will be a tournament play for me. And then Joe Mixon 8,000 if he's good to go. Like there's good competition in that range for Jordan Mason, but I do still like him. As far as the pass catchers, I rank Debo 1 because the workload is sick and he does get red zone work, at least 2 rush attempts in every game so far. I would go Ayuk 2 above Kittle because I agree with you that he's due for regression. Are we overlooking Jennings, though? Did lead the team with 6 targets last week. Got some deep work again, which he didn't get previously. Like, I don't know.
If you got 4 pass catchers, you got too many pass catchers for me to want to get to. I'm not.
But they all have upside. They all have upside. And again, like this is basically you're putting Juwan Jennings into this is gonna sound stupid, like the Christian McCaffrey role. Like McCaffrey would get 6 targets before, and now it's just leading to more deep throws for Brock Purdy than what he had in the past, which gives him more upside. But also, like, I mean, we know that they can have blow up games, so I don't think any of them is in play for a cash game. Maybe Debo because he gets the rushing too. But like for tournaments, I love all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it, but once you get to the point where it's like, okay, Brock Purdy's my number 1 QB, I can pair him with 4 different pass catchers. That means you need to commit to Brock Purdy and say, I'm building. So, okay. What's your typical quarterback exposure? As in, I play 4 quarterbacks about 25% each. And where are you with Purdy if you're going to get exposure to all of these different stacks?
I will go like 35, 35, 15, 15 is kind of like where it winds in. And he'd be one of the 35 guys, I think.
I just don't. To me, that's. If I could do math, out of like 20 lineups, 20 times. So that's 7 lineups.
Yeah.
If you play 20.
More than that, but yeah.
Sure. Okay. All right. 50. So let's simplify it. Playing 100 lineups. What's your distribution of those 4 pass catchers?
So there'd be 35 Purdy hypothetically. Yeah. I'm probably looking at
you can do percentages.
15 Debo.
Okay.
Probably looking at 10 Ayuk, then 5 each of Kittle and Jennings, but then some Kittle mixed in with the other guys, given the tight end theorem of just toss them in.
I'm with you. It's a little tricky for me when you get to that point.
I don't care. Ignore the floor, bro. What about the other side? Anything else for you besides Marv and McBride, or how you doing James Conner this week?
Probably not this week. I like him, but that salary's high. It doesn't leave a whole lot of room for downside. Again, I know we're ignoring the floor, but I also am not convinced that his ceiling is really justifiable at 79 in this matchup.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Anything else for you in this game?
No.
Okay, let's talk about our final game in the bookmaker section then. That is the Bills at the Texans. It's a fun game for real life, but also fun for DFS. It's a tight spread here. Money line is -108 on both sides. Total is 47.5. Sounds like Tank Dell and Joe Mixon back for the Texans, which means we got some more guys we can feel pretty good about here. Tank Dell specifically low salary. Nico Collins, one of the best receivers in football, one of the best workloads in football, one of the best quarterbacks in football. Bills, weird offense for sure. What's your preferred way to stack this game?
Yeah, this is where I get okay, I don't love any quarterbacks. Josh Allen coming off of a really poor game in terms of his overall production. We have Derrick Henry, we have CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Nico, if you want to throw him in there. We've got Josh Allen in a, off of a bad game. If I'm playing someone in the 9,000 range, on a slate where I don't love any quarterback, should it just be Josh Allen?
Potentially.
So,
I'm not opposed to that.
Like, that's a big part of it. He looked unbeatable in week 3. I know it was against the Jaguars, and then kind of got stifled, and they just got steamrolled right away. When Derrick Henry rips off an 87-yard touchdown run, like, kind of changes things. I think it changes demeanor, and even though we're we deal with the data, like,
it's deflating.
Like, it matters, and they were just playing from behind, and again, it's a good defense, and so he's had 2 down games and 2 games where it's like he would burn us. I think this is more along the lines of he could burn us with that 30+ number. And I like Dalton Kincaid a good bit. His role has been a lot better since week 1. And frankly, again, I'm not in love with many tight ends. If I can get exposure to a tight end and, again, one of the best games of the week with a quarterback who makes a lot of sense, that's appealing because there are numerous bringbacks. And it's a Stephon Diggs revenge game as well. So you got to kind of factor that in. But always love Tank Dell. Always love Nico. This one just feels more stackable than either of the other 2 we talked about. Because I'd play Stroud too. Like, I would just do the same thing.
Yeah. I agree with pretty much everything you said there. I think that the Niners-Cardinals game is slightly more stackable. But I'm not going to push back on that too much because I think they're kind of 1A and 1B for me. I think they're both a lot more stackable than the Bengals-Ravens game. And I think that part of the reason that I like this game a lot is because I actually do like both running backs. James Cook is oversalaried. So you might be like, why do you like him? But that's because people won't use him. Like, if you run an optimizer, James Cook will be nowhere near like a cash game optimizer build. But he has a path to a ceiling despite that, because the Texans linebackers are the weak spot of their team. And I think they could get exposed in this game because you got Khalil Shakir, you got Dalton Kincaid, you got James Cook. And all those guys benefit from poor linebacker play. The Texans 27th against the rush so far this year based on number fires metrics. They were good against the rush last year, but I think with this linebacker play, you can get after them pretty well. I think that Cook is going to be the main beneficiary, whatever. Benefactor. Thank you. Okay, I got it eventually. Wrong?
No, he benefits from it.
Okay.
The benefactor would be
whatever.
The linebackers are the benefactor if you're talking about
senior managing editor. There we go. Okay. Cook is going to be a guy who is going to have a 35-point game on FanDuel. And I think this is a good setup for it because he's potentially indoors. I haven't read a lot. Their roof was open for one of their games earlier this year, which bothered me. It's damaged into hurricanes. Like, what are you gonna do? But like, I'm kind of hoping it's shut for this one because like it's 11-mile-per-hour winds. So please shut it. Potentially indoor game. I think that James Cook makes a lot of sense for tournaments only. He is not a cash game play. Do not consider him there. Will you take any shots at Cook in tournaments?
Yeah, like this is where it comes down fundamentally with our differences in lineups. I build around 10 that I really like. I'm not saying you build lineups that you don't really like, but you build more lineups. If I was building more lineups, yeah, a Cook like Nico spend up to be different kind of stack makes sense. I don't think I can get there in like 10 lineups. I'm not going to have any James Cook. I think the workload, I think he's great. I think he gets high leverage looks, but he also has enough concerns at 82 where I'm not clamoring to use him. I don't know if he's going to repeat the Miami game all year, but and I want him to because I like him.
Yeah, I think he could. They get him creative targets downfield. He's a good running back. I think those things add up pretty well. So I think that a James Cook, Tank Dell lineup pretty likely to be in one of my like top 4 single entry lineups for this week because I do like that quite a bit. Speaking about those pass catchers, Nico Collins, $8,800. That's way up from where he has been. It's like $1,000 increase, but like, of course, it should be up there based on the workload he has gotten so far this year. He gets yardage upside. He has an amazing red zone role as well. So like no pushback on that salary. Diggs salary 76. I think that's a little high personally. Tank Dell has not done a whole lot yet, but did get 6 for 62, 6 targets, 62 yards against the Vikings. Could add a long play against the Bears, 7 targets against the Colts. Again, I think that it's going to come eventually for Tank Dell. Salary $6,000. Probably not going to be heavily rostered this week. I want to take swipes at Tank Dell. I'm going to keep saying that until I'm out of bankroll and can no longer do so. How are you viewing the Texans pass catchers this week?
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier to play Tank than anyone else. Diggs he's had a good role. He had that, aborted pass for a rushing touchdown. Not sure he gets that if Tank Dell's playing, but I could be off base in that. You got the revenge game factor, but the targets are up. You like to see that. So I want to get to Diggs if I'm playing Stroud. I think all this really, for me, as I talk about this, it comes back to CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
Where does Stroud rank for you in the quarterback landscape?
I'd put him above both. Well, yeah, I'd put him above both Lamar and Burrow in that one game.
Yeah, I would too.
Below Allen?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So he's probably my quarterback 3 then? Because I think I have Purdy and Allen above him, but then Stroud's probably 3. So in my player pool, for sure.
I mean, he might be. Yeah, look, there's no real value quarterbacks. Going to hear how you feel about Jordan Love here in just a little bit. You can kind of try to convince me on him against the Rams, which shouldn't take too much, but yeah, if we're kind of out on Jaden Daniels a little bit, lower on Lamar due to the fact that he might choose not to do as much as he needs to do. Stroud's like in that conversation.
Yeah.
And then it just makes me think like, okay, Brock Purdy or CJ Stroud. I know there's a salary gap here, but if we're building like different iterations here, this one feels a little more stackable, I guess. But
yeah, I think the other one's a tiny bit more stackable, but I get what you're saying. Like salaries are lower on the Niners, which helps, and their matchup is better, so that's part of it. But I think that Stroud
is bring back. It's the bring back aspect of it.
I think that's an easy bring back.
Yeah, he's easy until
Marv is an easy to bring back.
He's easy until they score 14 points.
Would you rather bring back Marv or one of the Bills?
I'd rather play Josh Allen, James Cook, Kincaid, probably.
But none of the receivers.
Shakir's banged up, so that could open up some things.
For who? Like who benefits?
Probably Keon Coleman.
Maybe he'll be late to meetings again and he'll get benched for the first quarter. I don't know.
He could.
It's really just Shakir, Kincaid, if Shakir's healthy. And I do like Cook, but it's a weird team. But I do like this game for stacking. I'm just reiterating why I like the Niners.
Doesn't sound like it.
No, I just like the Niners more. That's all I'm justifying here. Anything else for you in this game?
No, I think we covered it. I think it's relatively streamlined, and that stuff matters to me.
Okay. Well, you mentioned we're going to talk about Jordan Love. So let's do that now and talk about our trend section. The first trend is talking about this Packers offense with Jordan Love under center. No Christian Watson likely for this week. So what do you see when you dig into the data on this Packers offense when Jordan Love has been healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I looked just at this year because I think it's important, and I wanted to sort of figure out a how to account for Jordan Love because yeah, he had the breakout year, but how are they playing right now, and how much were they bogged down with Malik Willis under center? And then, frankly, because all of these receivers are young, I think there's a lot of volatility week to week that we should be receptive to. Um, but the Packers with Jordan Love in weeks 1 and 4, they've got a pass rate over expectation, according to NFL Faster, of minus 0.2%. However, league average is minus 3.4% this year. So they're actually one of the more pass heavy teams. That mark would rank 10th on the full season. And 2 starts with Willis, that pass rate over expectation was minus 22%. No team is lower than minus 12% for the full year, for some context. So they just abandoned the pass, and it really bogged things down. But it's also largely led to lower salaries for these pass catchers. Now, like, Willis was actually pretty efficient when you adjust for opponents when he did throw, which wasn't very often. But Love, he's been around like league average efficiency wise after opponent adjustments in just 2 games. But he's averaging a 10.2 yard ADOT. He's faced a league high 11.4% drop rate. I know Dontavian Wicks had the breakout, but he also dropped a lot of passes, was charged with 4 of them last week alone. That's a little
3
tough.
in week 1, actually, too.
Did he?
He had 2 or 3 in week 1 as well. Yeah.
So that's kind of brutal. But you know, this team's always been a little bit tricky because they've got a lot of fun players, but now with Christian Watson out, that tree gets narrower, and that's a lot more fun for me. And I really think last week is probably the best sample that we have because, again, we can look back at last year, but to me, because of how young this team is, specifically with the pass catchers, I want to put a lot of stock into what I saw. And Watson left after 5 routes a week ago, and Romeo Doubs led in route rate again. He was at 88%. He's led every week. I think that matters at a certain point. He doesn't earn as many targets, but being on the field in a situation that I'm positive on, I think is appealing. Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks were at 77% of the routes. Target-wise, though, Wicks had 13, which is a 25% target share. Reed had 8, which is 15%, and Dobbs had 7 for 13%. Wicks actually had more downfield targets, which for me are 10-plus yards. He had 9 of those than either Reed or Dobbs had just targets at all, which is really fun for a fun player. He had 3 end zone targets as well. And his target per route rate number eclipsed that 30% rate, which I've talked about being really, really interesting whenever receivers can get there or maintain it. His salary is only $5,900 this week, and I think that's pretty awesome. I do still think Dobbs has value at $5,700, and we know Jaden Reed's potential is immense. He had 139 yards and 8 targets, had a carry, but the salary is elevated up into that low 7,000 range. I would rank these 3, Wicks, Reed, and Dobbs, at salary, but we also can't forget your boy Tucker Kraft. He actually ran 1 more route than Wicks and Reed. He had 9 targets, 2 of which were downfield a week ago. His route rates have been 76% and 79% in 2 games with Love. He was blocking a lot more with Willis whenever they just weren't passing, but even on pass plays, he was just kind of inline blocking more. His target shares in games with Love have been 14% and 25%. 14% with a 25% red zone share. And the salary of $5,300 does help him stand out to me this week. And then Josh Jacobs, 77% red zone snap rate for the season, which is pretty sick in a game where he could have a good number of looks, and a 41% total red zone opportunity share. The running back slate's pretty weak, and honestly, I think Josh Jacobs is going to become one of my favorite plays of the week. Does limit me a little bit on how many other Packers I want to pair with him, especially Kraft, because I'm just a little bit averse to running back tight end same games or same team stacks due to touchdown potential. But love Jacobs, love Wicks, love Kraft. I should love Kraft. I didn't mean that on purpose, but I should be higher on Jordan Love, who's actually got a worse downfield target drop adjusted completion percentage than Daniel Jones this year, just for what it's worth. Where are you with Jordan Love?
Probably not going to get there just because I like the other guys more. And like, I don't think the rushing potential will be there just yet for him coming out that knee injury. Also, what? Stafford's $6,700? Interesting. No, I shouldn't do that. Stop it. Close the tab. Probably not get there with Love, but the fact that he's there and is efficient enough boosts me on every single person in this offense, which means maybe I should get to Love.
I was just going to say, if we love, I mean, I don't know. Dobbs is probably the one we would kind of leave off the true Love list here, even though
consideration list though.
But he's like still, probably should have Jordan Love on the list.
I think my favorite Packer though is Josh Jacobs, $7,000 because of he has not scored yet. You mentioned that red zone snap share. He's going to score eventually. And if he had scored, he would have scored 17.4 FanDuel points in week 1, 23.1, 11.3, but then would have been at 15.8 in that Vikings game. His salary is not $7,000 if he scores even once, probably in that sample. He's going to get there eventually. He's not going to catch a receiving touchdown because he's not allowed to. But like he will rush in for a score at some point. And so like he is a firm cash game consideration for me. And like, I think he's a love at running back, right?
Yeah, he's probably he might be the closest to a true love.
I think Kraft is a love for me too.
Well, I was going to say
closest at running back, you mean, for Jacobs, or closest on this team?
At running back.
Okay. Yeah. Probably. Yes. I think so. Because of the salary and the matchup,
I guess,
and the offense.
Kenneth Walker, probably 74.
Sure. I think that's fair.
But
we'll talk about him in a second. But yeah, I think
he's in that. I'm just trying to contextualize Jacobs here. Yeah. The role's really good. The offense is better. A lot of mouths to feed, but eventually he's going to score. Could score twice, and then we're dancing.
Oh yeah, third time we party, pants off. Outside of him, Wicks always earns targets when he's on the field. So last year overall, his target per route run rate was 22. No, it's since the start of last year, it's 22.7%. Target per route rate, which is a very good number for a guy $5,900 who's going to run a lot of routes this week. I used to be pretty low on Dobbs. I kind of view him now as being like, this is going to sound offensive, so I'm sorry, but like he's just Gabe Davis, and like I have liked Gabe Davis at times. I don't view that as being slanderous, like old school Gabe Davis, not current Gabe Davis, but like that is a player who has a path to a ceiling. Dobbs had 3 downfield targets last week, in part because they threw it 67 times or whatever it was. He's got a big body that we'll use in the red zone. 2 red zone targets in week 1 with Jordan Love, 1 last week. So if Wicks winds up projecting to be uber popular, I don't mind Dobbs as like a pivot and in the same salary tier. I think that's totally fine. And then Jaden Reed, I love because of it's a joke. Like it's kind of a bit, but also not a bit. The red zone rush attempts, they're pretty great for him. He gets overall rush attempts. He gets yardage because he's a very talented player. He's playing indoors this week. So Wicks is probably like the closest to being a cash game play of the group, but I'm okay pivoting off him for Reed or Dobbs in tournaments as well. Actually, Kraft is a cash game consideration too, but I don't know. I like this team overall.
So, I mean, should it just be, we'll have to rank Jordan Love when we get to the salary scroll at quarterback.
Going to be 4th at best, 5th at best for me. I think
it's tough to go into. Well, I guess Purdy's got a lot of options. He's your 1.
Yeah.
Who's your 2? Maybe Allen. He's got 1 and a half options.
Yeah.
You're that low. I'm higher on Kincaid. I think his role's improving a lot.
No, the 1 was Kincaid. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, you're right.
You said half.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. No, Kincaid's a 1. You're correct.
Okay. All right. Stroud's got multiple options. Okay, so Love's kind of in that same boat where there's a lot of options to go to. But
what about bringbacks on the Rams side of things? Jordan Whittington had ran like almost every route last week.
He did.
He got peppered by the line of scrimmage, which is why his 8 targets resulted in 62 yards. And so he's kind of like new Wandale, maybe not that bad from a depth perspective. Tutu Atwell is getting some looks, salary $5,600. He does get downfield targets, playing indoors, high ADOT guy, home road underdogs. Those are kind of used to the checklist. I'm not really there with Tutu personally, but I could hear the case for it. So how are you viewing bringbacks? I don't need to ask about Kyron. I think we can like Kyron, right? It's more about the receivers.
Yeah, we should it's almost to the point of should we prioritize Kyron no matter what?
Maybe.
Because his red zone role is
it's the best in football right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna say we shouldn't gloss over it. We're gonna kind of gloss over it right now, and move on to the pass catchers. But I think if we like the Packers so much, we should feel a little bit of life from the other side, and it can't just be Kyron.
Yeah.
You're right where Whittington's a lower ADOT guy, but it was 7.1 last week. He did get 2 downfield targets. Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell still running routes with Atwell getting more targets last week, a little more downfield work, but I would probably be more open to, or I would definitely be more open to Robinson and Atwell than Whittington. I'm not going there just because he ran every route last week.
I'm not touching DeMarcus. He is what if Gabe Davis and Romeo Doubs had no talent? I'm fully out on him again. I used to be in, but I'm out again. That's where I'm at there. So I think I would rank them Whittington 1, Atwell 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Surprising.
And no Colby Parkinson, despite the fact his role is I think he's too close to Kraft. There's no yardage juice. So I don't mind Whittington. I don't mind Atwell. I'm coming around on Atwell because the yardage is there. But any Stafford or no? I assume no. But
no Stafford for me. Okay. But I would rather play Atwell than Whittington.
Okay, interesting. I probably should.
I feel like if I said I like the guy who's not running downfield work, you'd yell at me.
No, you're right. But it's one game, so it's like, is that sticky? I don't know. All right, let's talk about our second trend here, and that's talking about the Seattle Seahawks offense, because they were involved in a shootout on Monday night and kind of shape up well in week 5 too. So I wanted to dig in to see how she handled the Seahawks in DFS against the Giants. And that's a surprise to me. The Seahawks actually lead the league in pass rate over expectation through 4 weeks. That could be because Kenneth Walker missed 2 games and Zach Charbonnet better suited as a pass catcher than a runner. But they had a tough match from one of the games Walker played, but they are letting Geno sling it a bit. And I don't blame them because Geno looks good. They're 15th in schedule adjusted passing efficiency, but Geno looks better than that. They've also been a bit better in early downs to the air. I could see them being pass heavy again this week because Dexter Lawrence is an animal. They've got great early down rush defense numbers to the Giants. The Lions did too, and Walker was awesome against them. Doesn't push me off him, but it does boost the passing game a bit. Through 4 games, DK Metcalf leads with a 23% overall target share, 48% deep. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a 21% overall and 32% deep. That's a much better role for JSN than what he had last year. I can't call either him or Metcalf a priority because I think that both salaries are appropriate versus some other guys at receiver are undersalaried, but I do want some exposure to those 2 guys. As for Walker, 2 matchups so far, 109 yards in scrimmage and 116, very tough matchups in both. He's averaged 4 targets per game, which is part of why he's been able to come through. I think that my favorite piece in this offense is Walker at 74. I think he's one of the better running back plays in the slate. So broadly, I am in on the Seahawks. I'd rank Walker first, JSN second because of salary, and then DK Metcalf third. How do you view the Seahawks, and how do you rank those 3 guys specifically in a Geno Smith revenge game, which I just realized?
Walker's first for me, for sure. He's a good football player.
Yeah.
And the team clearly likes him because Zach Charbonnet played well enough. And I'm always hesitant to say, okay, well, Charbonnet wasn't really earning a lot of work before, played well. Walker's not 100%. Even if he's playing, he's clearly injured. He's not, 100%. Are they going to limit him at all? I mean, no. Like, he scored at a really high rate, but still had yardage, which you love to see. So I think that's appealing, where Walker is my number one. I have to go DK Metcalf
Sure.
too, though.
Fair.
Because he's the constant here. I know the salary's high. I don't even know how often I'll get there due to the fact that the salary is elevated, but he's the constant. What?
This yardage upside.
Yeah. So his single game target shares have been 16%, 33, 18, 23. Like, not great, but consistent. I know I liked JSN a bit last year, but Tyler Lockett was involved. JSN this year, we've seen him not super involved, spike, go back to not super involved, spike. It's really easy to say, look at this target potential here, but I don't know that it's sticky. Like, Tyler Lockett's back on the injury report, was limited with a thigh injury, but he's always on the injury report at this point. He could come back. Smith and Jigba could get 4 targets, and Lockett could be relevant again because they've done the Charlie Brown like zigzag up and down.
Yeah.
With how they are in my spreadsheet, it's like target share, like they're just changing. So I think there's enough fear for me where I don't know if I love the other side of this game enough to get to JSN. So it might just be Walker for me.
Sure.
Honestly. Okay. If Lockett's like full by Friday, would you consider him?
Nope. No shot. Okay. Next Gen Stats has a yards after the catch over expected. And I didn't check after last week, but after week 3, Tyler Lockett was dead last at -22 because he just falls down or catches the ball. This against the Lions, he actually had like 10 yards of yak, and I almost like fell out of my couch because it happened. Like it's worked for him. He stays healthy, good for him, but like just no juice anymore. So I agree. It's Walker. Walker is like a single line of consideration. DK and Smith and Jigba are guys I'd like to get to. I'm not going to force it with either. Maybe I should with DK, but I'd like to get there on those guys. I do like their roles overall. So I think it sounds like we're pretty much on the same page with the Seattle offense as of right now. All right.
Yes.
Weather for this week, only 2 spots with elevated winds. Those are in Chicago for the Bears and the Panthers. I've not discussed that game a whole lot yet, but it's a really tough defense of the Bears. I took the under in that game when it was at 42.5. So not super enthused there. And then 12-mile-per-hour winds in Cincinnati for the Ravens Bengals. That may be why the total has come down 2 points. I think it should come down another point personally, but not super concerned about either. But I do think it does lower them at least a little bit. All righty. Let's now go position by position and break down our top plays on FanDuel for this week. What we do here is we go to each position, pull up the salaries on FanDuel.com, and kind of shout out which guys stand out to us. And then we'll give you our loves at the end of that section. So, Brandon, starting off at quarterback, who are the guys after our discussion who wind up standing out most to you?
I still am kind of clueless at quarterback with who my true favorite is.
I force you to fill out one lineup right now. Who are you putting in it?
I'm going to lean toward Josh Allen just because the upside's there. But with the lack of value that I feel like we've uncovered, I mean, I guess if we go like Jacobs and Walker, we've got like the Dontavian angle, some names in the 6,000 range at receiver, like low 6,000s. I can probably play Allen without too much potential. I'd probably play Tank if I'm playing like Josh Allen too.
Yeah.
In this sort of like hypothetical. So I'd want to go Josh Allen coming off of a bad game and the salary, I think, going up.
If you put in like a very low salary defense, I'll look at the Commanders in because of Deshaun. It's Josh Allen with Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, 65-60 left. I'll put Kincaid in there. But that fills tight end, and like you can make that work. 66-75, like a Josh Allen plus balanced lineup can work.
Yeah, like I'd go Tank Dell probably to offset that, and then
Wicks.
you're back up sort of into the upper 6s, low 7s. Maybe throw in like a Dontavian Wicks, and you're fine.
Yeah.
So I think by default it has to be Josh Allen as my QB1.
Sure. I think I still wind up with Purdy because I want to build through the middle of this week. And that means I want, like, if I can, again, I want to avoid the value backs in my highest dollar single entry lineup, and Purdy is the best route to doing so. So we're talking Brock Purdy, Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, and then peppering the mid-range at receiver. I think that's pretty attractive this week. You can do that with Josh Allen too. We just went through that exercise, but I do like it with Purdy as well.
Okay. I don't want to get ahead. I am curious as to know like who your third running back is in that spot so that you
not sure I have one yet.
So like, but okay. So you go down
might be Kyron, frankly. Might be Kyron.
Yeah. He could be like the difference maker of, okay, I really can't play Josh Allen because I don't want to. It's like if you go Kyron or like Najee, depending on your quarterback play, like then I guess like Purdy and Kyron with Allen and Najee kind of roughly works out. Yeah, that puts things into perspective.
For sure. Is Purdy in your top 3? I'll ask you that. Ignoring my adoration of him, is he in your top 3?
He probably wouldn't be.
So you go like Josh Allen, CJ Stroud, and then Lamar, maybe?
Either Lamar or Love.
Okay. Love's salary is only $500 more than Purdy, so I could hear that argument. And like it's Lamar, so I can hear all arguments here. Frankly, I just like the Purdy spot.
Can you hear an argument for Geno Smith?
Geno revenge game, 74.
He's got 2 games with over 30 rushing yards.
Just the argument against is pushback from the opposing team, but like you could say the same thing about Purdy too, I guess. So like but again, it's my team total projection for the 49ers is sky high. It's not as high for the Seahawks, which is part of why, but like we just talked about how high their pass rate over expected is. So like, I don't know, maybe.
Like, I think the chance that the Cardinals just aren't competitive is like high enough. That's what's really drawing me back with Purdy.
I hear that.
And I guess you could probably make like a very similar case with, I guess the spread's a lot closer for the Rams than I kind of realized.
Well, I may or may not have bet the Rams. I feel very weird admitting that.
So should it be Jordan Love then?
I think if we're talking like best back and forth potential, you're talking Stroud and Allen.
Yes, that's the thing that's hard to ignore.
Yeah.
And so
whereas like Love is only $200 below Stroud versus Purdy, you're saving $700 from Stroud. And I do I need some salary savings this week. So
I think Purdy is a bet against Josh Allen and Lamar having big games. That's kind of how I view it. I don't view it as much as his having like
30, I think he has 30 point upside with how high his ADOT is this year. He could have 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, and that's a 30 banger.
Yeah. And I know you're going to yell at me for floor. I think the odds he has under 20 points is high enough where I can't necessarily consider him as my QB1.
Okay, fair enough. I've got my loves being CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, Josh Allen. Who are your 3 at quarterback this week?
Allen, Stroud, and Love. Now,
okay.
I think about Love more.
Okay, Love over Lamar. Interesting. I like it. Running back. We've talked through the running backs here. I feel like we're in agreement that Josh Jacobs and Kenneth Walker are 2 stereotypical loves for this week. Do you agree with that assessment?
Sorry, I was looking at Lamar's game log. Just making sure I'm not being silly. It's the fact that he says he doesn't need to like destroy himself. Okay, so what'd you ask me?
Yeah. Are your 2 loves at running back Kenneth Walker and Josh Jacobs? Like, are those your 2 top tier guys this week? So they are.
Yeah. If we were doing our traditional thing where we listen out 3 loves, I would put Jacobs and Walker in there and then figured out the third and probably struggled and stared at it for 25 minutes and not know, and then come into the show and be like, I'll figure it out, I guess. Those are the 2 guys for me. Kyren is most
Who are you
likely
considering for your third slot?
Kyren and Mason.
Do you have a preference between the two as of right now?
Probably Kyren, because Mason his role is great. He seems to be a very good football player. They have 30 other red zone options.
Yeah.
The Rams have Kyren.
Yeah.
And again, the spread's closer than I would have thought. I guess it is a road game for the Packers, but I just think Kyren's the third name to try to get to. So
quick quiz for you. I agree with you. I like Kyren, and I think I'd put him slightly above Mason. The counterpoint here is, if you had to guess the yards from scrimmage gap between Mason and Kyren so far this year,
it's probably massive.
What do you think it'd be? Get ballpark.
I think Mason's at like probably 35 yards.
It's 45. 126 to 81.5. I think that's the biggest. And that means, and if we're talking like the 100-yard bonus, Mason's at 111.8 rushing yards per game. Kyren's at 64.5. So I actually think I'm going to flip that and go Mason number 3 above Kyren this week.
Yeah, I would not. I wouldn't argue that. I guess at that rate, though, would you rather find 500 to get to Derrick Henry?
Maybe. He's at 120 yards per game, 131.3 yards in scrimmage, really good game to stack. So maybe, sure. I think that's a fair point to make.
And for him, I mean, week 1 was forgettable. I remember kind of writing him off a little bit after
for
week
Mason
1.
Or for Henry?
Henry.
Oh, yeah. The past 2 weeks has been like 200 plus, maybe in both. No, almost 174 plus. Yeah.
174 and 2.9. Yeah. So,
and he was at 96 the game before that, which isn't bad either.
Yeah.
So
he had the slow week 1, under 50% of the snaps in a game that was just sort of negative script. So I know we're not saying like, well, instead of Kyren, just play Derrick Henry, but it's like if it's instead of Kyren, play Mason, but then it's like, should just be Derrick Henry against the really poor rush defense too. So I don't know. It's tricky. I don't know if I'm going to come up with a great answer for RB3, but thinking through this and thinking, okay, Henry's got 200 scrimmage yard upside and multi-touchdown upside together. Mason's got 100 rushing yards and a touchdown in his like back pocket. It seems like in this game, Kyren's going to get 60% of the red zone plays drawn up for him. Makes it really hard to sit here and say, I'm going to click on Najee Harris or like Trey Sermon very often.
Yeah. Especially when Najee's salary is only $500 below Jacobs.
Like the odds that those guys put up games is too hard to ignore.
And I think that that's part of the why like Purdy is.
I'm warming up to Purdy now for salary.
Yeah. James Cook, tournaments only, but a guy I'd like to get to. Same thing with Joe Mixon, assuming that he's full by Friday, which I think he will be, frankly, despite missing practice Wednesday. I think both those guys are interesting, but purely as like tournament plays. Scrolling out through the rest of running back, we haven't talked Chuba Hubbard, $6,800, really good role, tough matchup for him.
Mm-hmm.
How are you viewing Chuba at 68 this week?
Definitely don't mind it. Again, it's the role is one of the better ones in football. He's producing, the team's moving the ball a good bit with Andy Dalton, so it's fine. The production's been there mostly with the touchdowns, but that yardage is nice. He's probably the best. It's kind of wild to think about, but like Chuba Hubbard, probably the best case against like, okay, you can play Walker, Jacobs, and Hubbard as your core running backs.
Sure. Yeah.
That's appealing. I think that he's such a step up above someone like Najee that it's not close.
Chuba is?
Yeah.
Probably leaning towards a yes on that too. I did get a question like right when we started. So sorry, Robert, for ignoring this the entire time we were talking running backs then. And it's a game that I don't want to touch. Asking about the fact that Gerard Mayo is saying, hey, we might bench Ramondre in favor of Antonio Gibson. Would you consider Gibson? Would you consider Justice Hill as well at lower salaries? I think the best case scenario for Gibson, A, thank you for the question, Robert. B, I think the best case scenario for Gibson is a 50-50 split. And that's not enough in a terrible game. Justice Hill, Like he's getting really good passing game work, but like the overall yardage upside is still pretty poor. He's at 59.3 yards from scrimmage per game so far, despite like running really hot in passing game work. So I don't think either Gibson or Hill grade out well for me. I think I'd rather just go with Sermon if I want to really get down at running back this week. Any other value backs you want to shout out?
DeAndre Swift.
No.
Do you believe in the role?
I do not.
In the opportunity? Okay.
I might have, had you not mentioned smartly in Slack on Sunday that he still had a 31% rushing success rate on Sunday. He had big plays. That's what he lived off of there.
And then I guess we're writing off the Dolphins, so no mention.
The Dolphins don't exist. Yeah. Are the Dolphins on this slate? What do you mean? Okay, so I'm going Walker and Jacobs, and then the guys in consideration for that second tier: Mason, Kyron, Henry, Chuba like a half step below that. Yeah, and Sermon is in there too. As I'll probably have equal amounts Sermon and Derrick Henry, which sounds so stupid, but whatever. Here we are. I've done stupider stuff.
I think Sermon checks out because there are high salaried quarterbacks, at least specifically with Josh Allen. We're about to get into some high salaried receivers. Mm-hmm. So there is a reason to want to get to Sermon, but I don't want to get to Sermon to gloss over like Henry, Mason, and Kyron too often. Sure. Even James Cook, like I get the case for it.
Sure.
That makes a lot more sense. Like whenever there's not a lot of great slam dunk running back plays.
Yeah. I think that's fair, but
or I guess home runs, because that's a little less likely, but could. Yeah. Slam dunk implies that. Yeah.
So at running back, I listed out like, here are my two loves. What are you seeing? At receiver, I'm going to let you take lead because I don't know, man. Who are your receiver? Like? There are a lot of guys I like at receiver, which is why I kind of want you to take lead. You know, what stands out to you now we've talked through the slate?
I'm pretty similar.
Okay.
CeeDee Lamb is always appealing just due to his ceiling, but his target shares have been just kind of okay. It's another one of the situations where I'm with you with like Jamar Chase, where that target shares should climb.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been great. Not the best matchup. Jamar, we kind of talked about him already, where, yeah, he could score twice on 6 targets because he's Jamar Chase, but I'm not going out of my way to prioritize that. Mm-hmm. Lamar and Chase naked, like Lamar, like no bringbacks for Lamar. Just see what happens.
Sure.
Kind of build, your Jacobs, Walker, Dontavian Wicks level guys. Like
that's a Sermon lineup, I think, too.
Possibly, yeah. But if you're playing Trey Sermon, I don't want to play Trey Sermon with Brock Purdy very often. I want to play Trey Sermon with Lamar and
I'm playing Brock Purdy, so I don't have to play Trey Sermon.
Yep. I think Nico is where it gets interesting at 88.
Yeah. He's the first guy where I'm like, yes.
Yeah. I would really like to get there. There's the raw target numbers, the yards, the air yards. He's only got equity. He's got good red zone work, but only 2 touchdowns. It's not like, oh yeah, he's averaging 80 yards a game, but has 6 touchdowns through 4 games. It's nothing like that. This team clearly wants to feature him, and as much as I like Tank Dell, I don't think it's going to really impact Nico if Tank Dell's back. Biggest question mark is like if they get Mixon back, do they try to scale things back a little bit? Because like that week 1 where Nico's targets were down, that's when they gave Joe Mixon like 500 carries. So
and they want to run the football despite what happens when they run the football typically.
Yeah. So that's the only drawback, which is why I'm not clamoring for Nico over.
Right.
Like if I get, again, just to simplify it, you get a flex position, 8,800, Nico or Mason. I'm going Mason. Right.
Yeah.
So
I had to think about it though. So
yeah. Like that's where he's close. If it's Chase or Henry, I'm going Henry, not really thinking about it. DK is probably the next name, which again, I know we're only skipping Tyreek Hill, but he's appealing. If Malik Neighbors played like DK and Neighbors, no.
I don't know, man.
I get it, but I don't get it.
That's fair.
Okay.
Like I can't argue with you because you're right, but like I just don't want to.
Sure.
The salary's high.
Talk to me about Debo though, because it
Debo
sounds
or
like
DK?
For me,
Yeah.
DK slightly, but it's close.
Okay. So Debo, in the 3 games he has played, has a 26% overall target share. He has actually gotten a lot of deep work, 33% deep target share, and a 27% red zone target share, in addition to the work he gets as a running back. His salary is $8,000. He has not blown up yet. I think he's gonna real soon. 17 FanDuel points without a touchdown in week 2. You don't see that at receiver very often. Like it's not a McCaffrey number, but it's like a high-end running back number. $8,000. Like he's really good, getting good usage. Was not even listed on the injury report on Wednesday, so like he was beyond a full practice, if that exists. So I think that Debo has a lot of appeal, and I'd rank him above Metcalf personally. Might rank him above Nico after considering his salary savings. As blasphemous as that feels, I don't know.
So I'm trying to look this up because I don't know. You said like he hasn't blown up, and he's like he will. Other than really Juwan Jennings, has there been a blow up game from this passing
Debo.
offense?
Well, like last year, yes. And that was when they had Christian McCaffrey in the fold.
I'm saying this year.
I'm saying it's important to look at last year too, because they had McCaffrey in the fold. So in reality, their situation is better this year than it was last year. So
it should be.
And so I think eventually they're gonna have a hit. And a lot of those were via Debo last year, and Ayuk too, frankly. So I like Ayuk too, but I think that it's gonna happen. And also, like, other than Juwan Jennings, like that game did happen. We shouldn't just I know it happened without Debo and Kittle, but it still happened.
I think I gotta lean Ayuk in this offense for the savings.
I don't mind Ayuk either. It's a 1A, 1B situation for Debo. Where are you at on Marv and Jaden Reed? Marvin Harrison Jr., $7,400. Jaden Reed, 72. You said Marv on Slack once, and I was like, is Marvin Jones in the league? And I was really confused. You also said Zay once, and I was like, Zay Jones? I thought he was suspended. So I need to adjust to like 2024 Marv and Zay. I'm still a bit behind there. But we're on Harrison at 74 and Reed at 72 after discussing the slate.
Marv Harrison Jr., to clarify, over Reed for me.
Okay.
Harrison has amazing market shares. I know the matchup's not great, but
it's not bad for an outside receiver. I don't mind it there.
I believe. Well, I'm talking kind of again.
Yeah, overall defensive. Yeah.
Well, overall point potential. I'm just kind of not sold on after what I've seen through 4 weeks. There's glimpses for sure. And the thing for him is like he's one of those guys with 4 touchdowns through 4 weeks, but the salary's not exorbitant.
It came down again $900 from where it was last week.
It could be fair to question the true yardage upside in this offense because Kyler's not playing great. But I would go Harrison over Reed because Harrison's kind of one of 2 options in the passing offense, and Reed's one of 4.
Like if you're projecting target shares, you're going to project Harrison over Reed by 5 percentage points. Is that too high?
At least somewhere in there, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Like 18% for Reed to like 23 minimum for Harrison. I think that's, I agree with you on that. Marv slightly above Reed, but I do think both have good ceilings, and I do like both. 6,000 range where we get to T. Higgins at $6,800. Brandon Ayuk at 67. Deontay. I don't care. He's hurt again. Missed practice. They said he'll play, but like it's a tough matchup for him. I'm not using Deontay. I think it falls off a lot after Higgins and Ayuk in the high 6,000 range. How are you feeling about the 6,000 range? Yeah. If you want to talk about Deontay, you can, but I'm not going to.
No. It's just. Cool. I think I'm higher on. I think I need to be high on T a little bit.
Sure.
His first week back was fine, not great. Second week back, target share was up. I think he's a good football player. It's a good game, even if we're lower on it than consensus, I think. So that should be something that we do think about. But I don't think T's really coming close to like my main lineup. Whereas Ayuk, I think very easily could, which I say for the 4th straight week, basically.
Yep.
So
I agree with that as well. And in both aspects, liking T but being higher. on Ayuk. Any F1 Terry McLaurin this week?
Yeah, I think I'd have some, especially in stacks with Amari. His target shares have gotten a lot better and kind of protects me from not having any Jaden Reed, which is probably how I'm leaning. So get a little bit of exposure to that.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I'll probably have like a couple game stacks of this game. I build more lineups than you, so I understand why you wouldn't. But like, I think there's a path to it being good because of Myles Garrett's injury, the Commanders' defense, stuff like that.
So how many quarterbacks are you going to get to then?
I could see it being a mini stack. Like maybe I don't use Daniels, but put in McLaurin with Amari.
That's what I said. Yeah, that's what I.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Kind of gets me some indirect exposure to a potential eruption spot.
Yep, I agree with that. Okay, low 6,000 range. You mentioned DJ Moore, revenge game this week in Slack. How are you viewing him at 64 this week?
I think he's appealing, kind of similar to the Seahawks, where it's like, okay, there's some up and down potential for the 2 and 3 with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, but DJ Moore's solidified himself into like the consistent, like the constant. We got the revenge game factor, but DJ Moore's also good. The quarterback play is a big step down from what the Seahawks get. I know that, but the salary is really, really viable, I think, for DJ Moore, who's I still think has eruption potential.
Just seems really grumpy.
Everything.
Like he needs more sleep.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like I kind of understand. Like
greasy wheel narrative against his former team.
Sure. Maybe.
I guess the biggest knock here is wind, but
yeah,
he can get all types of different targets, so I'm not that concerned.
So you got $6,400 left for a receiver slot. Are you going DJ Moore, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Amari Cooper, or Khalil Shakir, who are all $6,200 or higher? More above those guys?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
What about you?
I don't know.
Or maybe Amari.
Well, I asked you.
Maybe Amari. Amari's going to get locked into a 30% target share, and he'll drop a couple, but he'll probably catch a couple too. So
yeah, Amari Cooper so far this year, 26% target share, 55% of the deep targets, and a 38% red zone share.
They're gonna say 38% drop rate.
Had the long touchdown call back last week because of a questionable holding call, I would say. Like an 80-yarder, whatever it was. Great matchup for him. If Njoku comes back, that does ding Amari's target share a bit. I think he'd be close to like 23% if Njoku plays. But $6,200, despite hideous quarterback play, like that's part of why I ruffle Malik Neighbors. Like I could get Malik Neighbors for $6,200 as Amari Cooper instead.
That is one of the most outrageous things you've said since.
Yeah, because Malik Neighbors' quarterback is better. Yeah, I agree.
This is outrageous.
How?
Why are you down on Malik Neighbors as a talent?
Because his quarterback is
that's
Daniel
absurd. You said Malik Neighbors. That's not this. We need to move on from that one.
Salary's high, man. I don't know. What do you want me to do? So no JSN, given that you have DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, and Khalil Shakir in that range?
I'm not saying none, but I think it's worth like being a little bit, conscious. And I want to point out Malik Neighbors. Never mind.
It's a 38% target share. I know, or whatever. 38% might be low. Am I underselling him? He is at 38.2%. Sick
for the full year.
Yeah,
factoring in week 1 where he was like a non-factor.
Yeah, because week 1 still counts. It's like the game didn't happen.
Well, he's about 46% since that.
Nothing changed about his role. He's had 7 targets there. So, okay, getting below those guys: Michael Pittman 61, Tank 6,000, Josh Downs 6,000, George Pickens. Have not discussed him yet. $6,000. Kind of don't hate Pickens in that Cowboys versus Steelers game because his shares are insane. Their offensive line is beat up, so they can't run the football. 28% overall target share for Pickens, 67% deep target share, and 46% red zone share. Like he's eventually going to go for 130 and 2. And it could be this weekend, given that Micah Parsons and Marcus Lawrence are banged up. What about the low 6,000 range for you?
You loving his quarterback?
I like him more than Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, me too. Nah, I like Pickens. Like, give me Pickens over Najee in this offense.
Pickens over Najee, Pickens over Josh Downs, who I kind of flirted with before, Pickens over Michael Pittman Jr., slot boy, new slant boy. I think that Pickens towers over those guys.
Pickens.
Frankly, I should probably go Pickens over Tank, right?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, that's
at a certain point. Whenever you have a player as talented as Pickens with elite market shares, you're then, and again, you could. I'm about to pull Jim. It's like it's a similar situation for me with Amari Cooper, where like the target share is solidified. He's a good player, kind of like prospect legend Amari Cooper. Keep that in mind. Like
he's still 23 years old.
It's hard to gloss over that for a chance at like the third best target share on a team. So Pickens at this salary, no touchdowns, like yeah, he's gonna be one of my favorite plays for the week. Okay. So like the reason I'm comparing that is Pickens versus Jawan Jennings. Couldn't really be much different on the offensive expectations, but give me Pickens over Jennings, like absolutely.
Pickens versus Dontavian Wicks.
That was the next thing. Is like Dontavian Wicks was the wide receiver one last week. He could be third in targets this week. It would not surprise me if George Pickens is third in targets for the Steelers this week. It would surprise me a lot. So
Pickens over both those guys? Because I think I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I agree with that.
Do you think there's any value in... you're going to yell at me for this one too, but because we should cover it. The Raiders.
No. Based on the Broncos, total is 35.5, 36.5. No, absolutely
not. I have to ask.
You do. You're being a good host. But no, absolutely not. Same for you or no?
Yeah, I'm not there either.
Cool. 5,000 range at receiver. Guys that will toss out there. And then if you want to toss out others, Wicks, 59, already discussed him. But then Romeo Dobbs, 57. Tutu, 56. We do have Jordan Whittington, 54. Maybe Keon Coleman, but I'm not personally there. Anything else you like in the 5,000 range at receiver? Potentially Darius Slayton? Because I'm not seeing a whole lot I like down here other than Dobbs and Wicks. And maybe Tutu.
Yeah, I like Tutu. Yosivas kind of got the Thanos snap with his targets last week.
The yardage was never there to begin with anyway, so
sure. Fine. I think that Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze.
Have you even seen Endgame? You said Mitch said Thanos snapped. You didn't make it that far, did you?
No, I gave up well before that. I got to the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which I liked when it came out.
Yeah.
But then by the time I got to it, I was like, I'm kind of
just threw me off that you mentioned Thanos. Anyway, continue.
So like I think DJ Moore is the guy here in this offense, but we're still looking at like solid target per route numbers and like potential. I'd probably go Odunze over Keenan because he's getting a lot of downfield work and has some potential. But if we're digging for like, this will sound like really not scraps, but like if you're down in the value range, I think Odunze is better than you could do a lot of other places. I don't know. I still don't think I'd go like Dobbs and Tutu over him, but I think he's at least worth noting that he's getting some good work. His quarterback just got to get a little more better right now.
Not into that game. So I'd rank Tutu, and you said this too, but I'd rank Tutu and Dobbs above him. I'd rank Wicks above him. So probably not going to get there realistically. But I hear what you're saying with him as well. Anything else in the 5,000 range?
Not particularly, no.
So who are your loves at receiver after considering salary, game environment, role, etc.?
If I had to pick three
or two, we did two at running back basically. So
it should honestly be George Pickens after I thought about it more.
Sure. I agree with that.
I would go actually DJ Moore's in consideration for me at the salary.
Okay.
But more likely Marv.
Okay. I like Ayuk. I like Debo.
Ayuk, yeah.
I like Ayuk and Debo. I like Tank and Nico. and Pickens is the one like non-game stacky kind of play that I like this week.
Yeah, give me Ayuk over DJ Moore, but I think George Pickens is the one who I think I really changed my opinion on the most. Yep. Really high on him now, and it's not like
Sunday night hammer action.
Yeah, it's just some of that like late in the week, like, oh yeah, George Pickens gonna get 12 targets, and he's very good.
He is indeed. Okay, tight end. What are you thinking here?
Understand the case for Kittle and McBride if you want to kind of get that game. Definitely not like some sort of tight end double stack. I don't think it's that kind of week.
Ew.
So it's more fine than it is a priority, I think.
Sure. I would only use McBride if Fred Warner is out. If Fred Warner
Yes.
plays, I will avoid McBride. I'm not touching the black hole.
Bowers really disappointing last week without Devontae in terms of his usage. Don't want to move away from him entirely, so he's sort of a like for me.
Yeah. But we like Kincaid more, right?
I like Kincaid a lot and Ferguson a lot as well.
Ferguson above Bowers?
Probably due to offensive expectations, yeah.
I think I agree with that too. But Kincaid, I think, is like the first guy I'm like, yeah, I'd probably feel pretty good about that. His target share for the entire year, so including like some weird weeks, is up to 18.4%. So that's not bad in a game where they could throw quite a bit. Mentioned before, the Texans linebackers are not good. Kincaid benefits from that. So I think that it could be a pretty big Kincaid week, and he is a consideration for my like single lineup. I think that it's Dalton Kincaid and Tucker Kraft are like the two guys I'm like, if you give me one lineup, those are the two guys I'm considering most heavily there.
Yep. And Shakir's banged up. I know that Keon Coleman got those like old timey Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, like back shoulder, just run down and we're gonna like connect down the field. I don't know if that trust level's there. His market shares are still not great, so I think Kincaid's really the guy in this offense. He's had two 20+% target shares in the last 3 games. I know you might want to ignore week 1. Or for you want to include it, is what I'm trying to say, because it still counts. But we've seen his role improve since week 1. Kincaid's a good player. He has touchdown equity, and if he's frankly the bring back for Josh Allen, that's helpful. Like I'm not saying I'd love Kincaid like 66, but knock 500 off of Josh Allen, say Kincaid 66, I'd stash that like just fine. Sure. So Kincaid's my guy. Followed by Tucker Kraft. I think we covered him pretty sufficiently. I will say Pat Freiermuth's getting good market shares, and
no, absolutely not. Sorry, you can finish your point, but I was shaking my head in silence. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's not distracting or demeaning in any way.
Sorry. Fair point. Anything else at tight end?
No, because I'm afraid of saying the wrong name.
Good. That's the point. Okay. Defense. Scroll down.
So we have like 2.5 tight ends we like then.
Yeah.
That's why I thought maybe I'd mention Pat Freiermuth.
Don't care. I'm not using them. Rather get hit by a bus.
So you're gonna build I'll call it dozens of lineups, and you're gonna use Dalton Kincaid and Tucker Kraft and nobody else.
No, I'll use Kittle. I'll have some Ingram if he plays. And McBride if there's no Fred Warner. I think that's enough.
All right.
Maybe Njoku. I'd need a full by Friday, though, if there, personally. Okay, defense, scroll all the way to the bottom. Not using Carolina, not using the Giants. I think the first one I'm like, I shouldn't do this, but it does grab my attention, is the Commanders. They stink, but so does Deshaun Watson. It could be just a true slap fight. And for $3,500, like they shut down Kyler. Kyler's not good, but like neither is Deshaun. And they're at home this time. Could I interest you in the Commanders, or is that a bridge too far for you?
I'd be receptive. Okay. I might go with the Colts though instead.
against T-Law.
Trevor
I think their
Lawrence,
defense
I don't know if he's
stinks
it.
too. I think their defense is bad.
I'd rather play a home defense, but
yeah. Any Browns against Jaden Daniels or no?
No.
Okay.
Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in football right now. I don't think I need to roll those dice.
I think I might need to get to 4,000.
Yeah,
that's Denver is 4,000 facing a team that might be mutinying, and also they look like we don't care a lot about like how good is your defense, but the Denver defense is legit good. I think $4,000. The Raiders can't run the football, like physically they can't. So like we're probably gonna see some dropbacks here. Like we should probably be behind the Broncos, right?
Yeah, and either of their quarterbacks have like elevated sack rates too. So
yeah, okay, all right.
I could see myself going. Let's see who else is up here. New England, yeah.
Patriots at 41, Dolphins at 42. Just less Jalen Phillips, which doesn't help them very much, but wouldn't use the Raiders with no Max Crosby. I think that dings them enough. He didn't practice again on Wednesday, so he's probably not going to play. So can't get to the Raiders, but
I'd probably go Denver and New England and just split.
Sure.
2 home defenses that should have pretty phenomenal. I'd probably be higher on Denver though, honestly.
I agree. I'd probably go Denver, New England, and then in the lots where I'm like, I really want to get to Jacobs. I don't know why I picked Jacobs. I want to get to Ayuk versus the low 6,000 range. I can jump down to Washington to get to Ayuk. Like that's fine. I would be willing to do that. But
I was assuming you were going like when I'm selling out for like a Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, what if kind of.
Yeah, I'm selling out for the true alpha, Brandon Ayuk.
If I'm selling out for like this mid-range value, then
it's not a mid-range. You like him. Come on, don't be dismissive.
But
don't slander our guy.
That's not how you use salary.
I don't know, man. All right. Now that we talked through the slate, any final thoughts for you on week number 5?
I think it's becoming a little bit clearer to me, especially with 2 $7,000 range running backs I like. Still a little uncertain about the quarterbacks. I think there's elite potential from the 2 superstar fantasy alphas. But so many wide receivers, just enough tight ends where I don't feel like I have to kind of grit my teeth. It's shaping up to be a good slate. Ultimately, it's going to come down to which games I exclude and try not to stack, because I'm probably more representative of a lot of people where they're not going to play as many lineups as you. So you gotta pick and choose, and I would rather get the right combination or get the combinations of the games that I like and just sort of.
So you want to go with the more concentrated target shares and stack those games?
Yes, I don't see myself being able to build a Purdy Jennings stack, Purdy Kittle, Purdy Ayuk, because then if I do that and I'm rotating, then I don't have any. Right, for me, it moves me too far from my core plays.
Yeah.
So
okay, fair enough.
That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I will be doing the Purdy combo things. I think that it's helpful that we've identified a couple 6,000 range receivers we like in Pickens and Ayuk, Higgins, guys like that. We like Tucker Kraft. There's enough value to get to Josh Allen, so I'm maybe not a lot to use Purdy against you in our head-to-head, but I do still like the value provides.
So whenever, I think this is helpful. I know whenever you're building, you're saying you're going to get like Purdy with all 4 of his pass catchers. Are you building a lineup with Debo and then duplicating it and just playing Ayuk?
Usually it's Purdy, Debo, Marv bring back. Purdy,
no. I'm saying
Marv bring back.
But in terms of, okay, you build a lineup you like and has Debo and Purdy stacked in there with Marv. And you're saying, I want a Purdy Jennings stack. Does the whole rest of your lineup change and you're only focused on
it's like, okay, I have these 3 guys like the building blocks. What are the best plays around that? Which means I wind up using a lot of the same guys. But like if I have extra salary, I go from using Jacobs, Walker, I don't know, someone else, to Jacobs, Walker, Kyron, or Jacobs, Walker. Yeah, probably Kyron, frankly. Okay. So like it's still my core plays around them, but it's just dictates which tiers I'm picking from at each slot.
Okay, I got you.
So it's still like the building around the same core, and I can get really high roster rates on guys, but yeah, good question, though. I think that makes sense. All right, that is all that we have here for today on the Heat Check. Again, if you're watching the YouTube side of things, back with you later on today, talking NFL Week 5 best bets with Megan Payton of FanDuel TV. 4:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll be live on this FanDuel football betting YouTube page. Also tomorrow, talking player props in the NFL with Austin Swaim, 10 a.m. Eastern on the FanDuel football betting YouTube page. Hit subscribe there. Leave a thumbs up if you like what you hear. We appreciate those of you streaming over on YouTube. On the podcast side of things, FanDuel Research Podcast to get the Heat Check as it goes live each and every week. Brandon, people have questions for you on X. Where can they find you there?
Gdula 13, GDULA 13.
And I am on X at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Want to give a big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his hard work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Good luck in week number 5. We'll talk to you once again next week to break down week 6. This has been the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.